When we mention individual psychology, we must mention one of the main founders, who is the Austrian scientist Alfred Adler, who joined Freud in a group of psychoanalysts, but he disagreed with him in a number of matters and wrote many books, including the book Understanding Human Nature. This book is an attempt to make everyone understand and realize the basics and principles of individual psychology, and at the same time presents the practical applications of these basics and principles. This book is also a comprehensive application of our individual behaviors within our human groups, and the environment in which we live. Its purpose was to clarify three things: to clarify the wrong behavior of the individual, to teach individuals how to recognize their wrong behaviors, and to teach individuals how to fit in with their social environment. Understanding Human Nature by Alfred Adler. Adler stresses that consciousness is the product of movement, as it is attributed to living organisms that can move, and therefore there is a purely causal relationship between movement and consciousness. The focus here is on the movement because the ability to move requires greater concentration on mental activities, and if we imagine the existence of an individual who has planned all his future movements, the life of such an individual will be rigid. This will also lead us to the function of the human nature. If we consider the previous point of view, we will find that we have taken into account the emergence and development of the hereditary abilities of the individual in order to defend and attack, which were provided by heredity and through which living organisms can interact with the surrounding situations. Psychological activity is in fact a complex group of defense and offense mechanisms aimed primarily at the continuity of the living organism's life within its surroundings and its natural environment, and these mechanisms also aim to provide the organism with the mechanisms of continuity, growth and development safely. This allows us to know the human nature within the context in which it lives. As it is impossible to imagine a psychological activity that occurs in isolation from everything. Bit to remember, man is a conscious being, and his consciousness is related to his ability to move, and to produce a complex activity of defense and offense mechanisms. In this life, we face a group of difficulties and problems that limit our ambitions and goals, and whenever a person is unable to overcome some obstacles, a group of complexes related to inferiority, and a feeling of inability to resist and confront are immediately formed. We may understand the attitude of children with disabilities, for example, and how they remain passive in the face of others, and the difference between them and the healthy children. However, this attitude is not limited to them only, but it is related also to the rest of the children who have lost the feeling of social security, and instead of integrating into their society, they insist on the impressions left by others. The inferiority that a person feels, especially in his early childhood stages, can increase if parents do not deal well with this type of psychological conflict, and from these wrong impressions that the young child might have and might make him conclude two main things. We find his feeling that he is not important, so he has the impression that he has no rights. The second thing that is inculcated in the child when he is not treated seriously, which is being uncertain about his surroundings and his direct environment, and he also begins to doubt the seriousness of life itself. Bit to remember, the feeling of inferiority and worthlessness begins from childhood and early education. When man's journey begins to develop significantly in this life and its various fields, and the individual's features of superiority and control begin to appear, this generates psychological stress that helps the individual to show up and grow more and more. Here the individual begins to lose his feeling of what is real and realistic in life, and he completely engages himself in wondering about what others think of him, and the impression he leaves. Vanity and arrogance are morally reprehensible characteristics, and the individual who is characterized by them is considered by many people as a bad person, because arrogance is a very dangerous thing, especially if this act is committed a lot, because it leads the individual to many harmful activities, and makes him interested in appearances instead of the essence of man. Perhaps the greatest danger that threatens the arrogant person is his detachment from the reality and facts surrounding him, and he begins to lose his understanding of the meaning of human relationships. His attitude may also become dysfunctional, as he forgets his duties as a human being, and frees himself from any responsibility, so he sees everything wrong except his attitudes and behaviors that are accompanied by a kind of arrogance and violation of all moral values. Bit to remember, arrogance is a kind of detachment from reality and not recognizing its existence. Human feelings express themselves in some way, or in somehow under the pressure of conscious or unconscious necessities. What we must understand is that these emotions and feelings have a specific direction like any characteristic of the human psyche, and these movements can be called the psychological growth and development of the individual, which takes place during a specific period of time. In fact, feelings are not ununderstandable or intractable to psychoanalysis, simply because they occur within a path in which you find the appropriate way of their occurrence or existence. Its specific goal is to create the individual's psychological state through which these feelings exist. If he is happy, then joy is the appropriate expression for this situation, and if he is sad, then sadness and tears are the appropriate feelings to express this psychological state. An individual who does not have confidence in himself, or in his ability to reach his goal tends to the feeling of never giving up because his feeling of insecurity prevents him from doing so. Therefore, he tries to reach his goal by making more efforts with the help of additional feelings and emotions. Since feelings are closely related to personality, they are not specific to a group of individuals, but rather they exist in a regular manner among all human beings. Bit to remember, feelings and emotions express the psychological state of the individual through which these feelings exist.